Alrighty, and for sake, let's start. So again, happy World Photography Day. Really special day today for this webinar. And welcome everyone to today's webinar. So it's Through the Lens with Gavi. It's about capturing street portraits and human moments. Hi, Gavi. I'm Axel. I'm photo and video community manager at Pixabay, and I'm really happy and thrilled to have you all with us today for this exciting session. And a little bit about me. So, around more than 10 years ago, I started with photography originally just because I needed like a job and needed money in Los Angeles back then in the years. But I worked as a PA to a well-known photographer over there in the US. But over the years, I completely fell in love for myself with street and travel photography. And but street is my biggest passion. So, and today I'll be your host, and I'm super excited to introduce you our co-host and today's presenter, Gavi. He's an incredible, talented photographer with a truly unique eye for moments, emotions, portraits, and people photography. But before we jump in into today's topic, I'd love to pass over to Gavi so you can introduce yourself properly.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Gavi, based in Berlin, and I'm focused on street photography and also street portraiture, which is also the topic of today. But if you ask me, my photography journey started by moving to Berlin because of the new influences and areas, and then slowly going into portrait photography, and then in the end, more to street photography. So it's a pleasure to meet you, everybody, and I'm looking forward for the presentation.
Yeah, so then for today, let's go and let's start. First of all, so let's take a quick look at our agenda, and we are kicking off with a really exciting topic, the art of capturing human moments in the streets. So, and then we will step over to light, mood framing, and many more really special and interesting topics. So I don't want to read all of them, so we will step into them. So I'm really excited. And I hand over to Gavi for the first topic about the art of capturing human moments in the streets.
Yeah, thank you very much. For me, I think street photography is always a decision between being patient and spontaneous. For example, that image was taken, I think, end of last year, beginning in this year, and it was just a spontaneous walk through Berlin Kantstraße, heading towards to Zoologischer Garten, and I was just seeing also just an interesting scene over there, and I was just coming closer and closer. And once passing by, I was just taking quick two photos. And in that moment, also, the man hugged the woman, which was super emotional and filled with, I don't know, you can see the emotion of the man in his face and also the hands. And then I just passed by, and then I was just like, oh, maybe I have to take two or three more pictures because that was so wonderful to see. And you could say that I was a little bit more patient afterwards, and I experimented with the other direction and also with a different composition. But in the end, I was quite happy with the first photo because, yeah, you clearly see, as I mentioned, the face of the man hugging the woman. And then also, as a contrast, also the friend of his looking at that moment. But he is also a little bit more stiff and not really comfortable with that situation, I think, because you can see also his hand grabbing the brake lever of his rental bike. And then also not really emotional contrast, but also visually. They both are dressed differently. Like he's more in the dark, and they both are more light up with a lighter cloth, and then also the lighter color or contrast. And they're all standing in the light. So it automatically you have more interest into that scene, and also with the help of the leading lines of the bridge, the full focus is on that specific moment. And I think we can also jump to the next slide. I think that's exactly why I do street photography, to capture these small moments that we usually don't really see. You could also say that if you're in the underground and having a look around, there are usually everybody on the phone. And I think these small interactions that we usually don't really look into, um, yeah, that gives me also sort of say a smile, or also you could say also that defines us as a human being. And that's also something that I'm more interested into it. So definitely the interaction between humans, maybe also human to animal, or the human to the environment itself. And if it comes to street portraits, then I'm full into their story, because usually you just pass by or just walk by and we don't get to know these untold stories. And then I try to connect with the stranger and to understand what they are. Maybe they're sharing the stories with us, and that also I think is the topic of today. So how to make street portraiture more authentic. And as I mentioned, I do also street photography, and so it's quite important to work quite fast and also unnoticed, and that also to capture the decisive moment. So we will also learn more about that one. And then also in the end, how to build like a personal vision or style for street portraiture, or also for street photography in general. We can continue to the next one. I think that's the first chapter. Um,
Yes, this one, right?
yeah, exactly. Um, so if you
All right.
usually ask the street photographer, there are usually also two different types of them. There's on one hand, like a really fast-paced photographer who rushes through the city, scans everything, and is looking for the next interaction, and also maybe also the next stranger to photograph. But and then we have also on the other hand, photographers who are a little bit more slower paced. They want to embrace the environment. They take their time to perfectly frame the picture. Um, so there are definitely two different types. If you ask me, I'm the first one, but sometimes it helps also me to go a little bit slower. Like on that picture here, I was just rushing towards a friend. I was a little bit late, so I couldn't take a photo of that musician. But afterwards, when I was heading home, I was happy to see them there. So I just took a moment, looked around, and there were a lot of things happening around him due to the market. And then also in the background, there was a book box where you can trade books for free. So a lot of interactions were happening there, but I took my time. And then I thought also, oh, the light is quite beautiful. Maybe it's also nice to ask him for a portrait. And he was like, yeah, do whatever you like to do. I really don't care about it. And then I just took my time, took a few photos. Unfortunately, he was still looking at his phone. But just moments in between, he was just smiling. I wasn't really taking notice of that. I just realized that afterwards that he was smiling at his phone. Maybe he just got a funny image or a funny message from his loved ones. And I think that makes also the photo quite beautiful. That innocent smile and that sort of say decisive moment in all the other alternatives that I took.
Thank you, Gavi. So yeah, also for me, it's I've learned through street photography a lot about patience and observing. So the I told Gavi the last time that I, I waited like in Munich once around like 2.5 hours for one shot. It was like because the light was so perfect, but the perfect person in this light spot was missing. So and I waited and waited, and yeah, and it happened. So finally, but yeah, it's a lot about patience. But afterwards, you're really happy and you start like observing the whole area. So and it's some special things happen. And some important point. I will track your questions. If you have some questions, please write them down, and afterwards we will answer some of them in the Q&A. Like for example, monochrome why, but we will come to this point why Gavi is using like black and white photography. So then the next step, light mood framing, shaping emotional portraits.
Exactly. So what makes an image interesting is definitely, so if you ask me, I'm the one who is more interested into the interactions. Then if I have the time, I can work with the light, and then in the end um, with the composition, because usually if you do street photography, you're just also capturing moments that are just a few you're just visible for a few seconds, so you don't have really the time to work with different angles and different compositions. So you need to act fast. So therefore, this is my rating of these features, how to make it an image more interesting. For example, also here, I was first time in Lisbon doing a more like a lifestyle portrait session with a model. And all of a sudden, an old lady came by and I just sat on the stone because if you know Lisbon, there's a lot of hills and you have to, it's quite exhausting, even for me. And she was also carrying her groceries. And she just sat there. And I think it was so beautiful with the background, with the colors, and also how the light fall down on her hair, and also with the light rays surrounding her. So you could say the composition or the framing of the image was also already there. And I just asked her for a portrait, but unfortunately, she didn't understand any English. So the model stepped in and then translated back and forth. And it was really nice to see somebody so smiling and happy because a stranger asked her for a portrait, and yeah, that in the end made me also quite happy. But if you want to work with light, there's some different light settings you can work with, which we can see also in the next slide. Usually we have three major phases, you could say. We have the golden hour, more like on sunset and sunrise. We have the midday, like around about lunchtime, and then we have the blue hour before it gets dark. And with these different light settings, you can also create different moods. Like with the golden hour, it's more like dreamy, like really soft and warm light, and also long shadows, if you're more interested into that, which create also really nice black and white images. But also if you use color, then you can use that light source to enlighten your subject, or if you want to have a specific feeling in your image, then there are specific time phases to go outside. Like on midday, it's quite harsh. It's usually also the light from directly above, which is sometimes really unpleasing for portraiture because usually you have I call it the eye bone, and that creates also like a shadow under the eye, which is usually unpleasing. But if it's, for example, cloudy outside, usually during winter times, then the light is also quite soft, and then you don't really get these shadows. And then you can also take wonderful portraits during midday. And then if you're more like a cinematic, mysterious person, then definitely Blue Hour is a perfect way to create really cinematic photos, usually with a cooler color tone and also with some city lights or city signs on. It creates like a really cinematic and atmospheric shot. But as a street photographer, yes, I can go out for a few with a specific timeline or time phase during the day, but I just go out when I have time to just capture these moments. So yes, it would be handy to go out in the morning, but if you don't have time, that's fine. I'm more interested into the interactions and also the people. But yeah, you can definitely use light to enhance different feelings and emotions.
Definitely. So, for example, what I use or what I love to use for couple shoots, it's like the golden hour. So
Mm.
it embraces like it creates like this total like kind of romance,
Oh yeah,
nostalgia, and conveys also the comfort. Like in your picture before, so it's creating something really nice, and you love to see it. So afterwards, like if you have
exactly.
this beach mood with sundowner, like really romantic, but yeah, that's what's creating like light, and definitely. So light is something really special and important, and more than illumination, definitely. Well, like you explained it really well. Thank you, Gavi. And what I love is all the cool tones created like in the blue hour. So
Mm,
for kind of melancholy and calmness, and
okay.
creating like a really special mood, like kind of also sometimes this dystopic film mood, and especially if it's the blue hour and rainy. So that's also what I love.
Oh,
But
nice.
yeah, depends what you like and what kind of street photography you like. So yeah,
Yeah,
so
nice. So yeah, as we mentioned, you can definitely create specific light moods with it. Usually, also as an example here, we were just traveling through south of France. I think it was Montpellier, um, and specific shadow can create also like a mood. In that case, the foreground is kind of dark and really like feels a little bit more like a danger situation. But if you go closer and closer to the end, you see the light. Um, and luckily, also there was a man directly walking in front of us. So therefore, I took the opportunity to shoot his silhouette, and that creates also like a feeling of moodiness, but leaving also like the bad things behind you and going forward to a like a positive thing or happening, even though as a street sign, you can see it on the street sign is a dead end. So there's something really moody in it, and you can play around exactly with the shadows and the contrast that creates yeah, specific feelings and emotions. And with the help of leading lines, you can see that on that image, for example, with the road. So everything is just pointing towards the end, and also with the roof lines. So everything is just focused to the middle of the picture, which is the silhouette, and then you can also enhance the composition or maybe also the feeling of a specific image by doing exactly that. So composition, using composition, leading lines, and then also like shadow and contrast in the image itself. But what I really like to use also is the urban backdrops. On that example is the foreground as a narrative. If you take, for example, a portrait, it's really nice to separate your portrait with from the background. So that's a usual or typical thing to use. But in my end, I love to use also like a higher aperture, so you can see a little bit more of your background to give a little bit more context. Like if I take a portrait, maybe that's a specific space where he or she usually goes to, and maybe he also shared a story around that place, and that helps me also to, yeah, to enhance the story of somebody that I photographed. Yeah, and then as I mentioned, we can definitely experiment with silhouettes. Like on the first smaller image, you can't really see what's actually there, so you need a little bit more time to discover the image itself. But I took this exactly image but while shooting against the light, and I was measuring for the highlights. So everything that is not really in the light will be super dark. And that creates also more like a moody, interesting picture because you have to discover the picture itself to understand it. And then you slowly realize, okay, there's somebody jumping over the puddle, like the famous picture that André Cartier-Bresson took, like a small marsh. And then you slowly also discover maybe when someone in the foreground, and then you slowly discover undiscover the image itself. But as we mentioned, with light or specific framing, you can also enhance or help the viewer's eye to guide through the image. Like in the smaller one below, the seller is already framed in the booth, and then also the light falls down on him. So you automatically look on the seller, and you slowly discover what he sells. And then you see, okay, there's also a man on the right-hand side who was interested into, I think, a cup or something, and then you understand slowly the story. Okay, that might be a connection. Then you see also they look to each other, And yeah, then it makes also a little bit more sense. And with a higher aperture, you can also see the background over there, also somebody who was looking into something else. So you clearly see also more of the context, which tells also the story. It makes the image more like enjoyable and also interesting. And then to street portraits, it's definitely the topic of being authentic or taking authentic pictures. Um, I think the most important thing is definitely the connection that you build with a stranger. Usually, what I do, I love to approach a stranger from the front, so he or she can already build their own confidence and they already see that somebody is approaching, so they feel also a little bit more safe than somebody is approaching them from the side or tapping them from the back, which is more like a dangerous situation. So they feel already like, okay, there's somebody or something is happening. And with the use of a confident body language, with a smile and with a positive attitude, um, you can break the ice between you and the stranger, and you get also like a natural connection with them without being too unsecure and too a little bit too creepy. Because if you feel not comfortable with a situation, or if you feel like a creepy person, then that definitely reflects towards to the stranger, and then they feel also uncomfortable and not really welcomed. If you have a bad gut feeling, and if you don't feel comfortable with that, then it's fine to just leave it as it is. You can just try it with maybe with another person. You can recharge your batteries. You're confident, and then you can approach again a stranger with with a little bit more confident and a positive body language.
I think from my side, good advice because when I started like with street photography, also taking portraits from unknown people in the streets.
Mm,
Before all this, I started like with friends. So I asked friends if I can
mm,
photograph them, and even if you know them, you try and you start like to understand like their emotions in front of the lens. So everyone reacts differently to a camera. And you know your friends, but you will know them differently if you start like photographing them. So, and I think it's one really easygoing step, like to do
mm,
portraits like with family, friends, and see how they react to you. So some people are feeling like totally comfy with photographing them, and someone are like totally convert
mm.
like to being a shy person. So and this is also the kind of the art of taking portraits of people you don't know or you know, to let them feel like comfortable in front of the lens. Yeah.
Oh, that's a wonderful tip. Yeah, definitely start with friends and family members. Also for you as a photographer to get a little bit more comfortable taking portraits if you haven't done it so far. So yeah, that's a definitely wonderful tip. Um, what makes my way of portraits also a little bit more authentic is definitely the way how I approach them. We already talked about asking them from the front, but also you can break the ice between you and the stranger by a small compliment, or maybe to be genuine, curious about them. For example, here in that image, these were two artists from Schöneberg, which is a district here in Berlin, and they were about to enter their studio, and he was just carrying an image. And I just approached him, and then we talked more than 5 minutes about photography and art. So there was a topic that we both share, and then it's natural for me to speak about the topic, and also they feel comfortable because they don't have the feeling that I want something from them. So it was just a genuine conversation. And then just afterwards, I just asked them, like, okay, do you mind if I take a portrait of you both? And that helps you also to, emphasize the authenticity in the portrait itself. Um, but as I mentioned again, timing and respectful body language is really key in that moment. If you have the feeling that you overstep like a boundary, or if you overstep your own ethics, then you automatically have a bad feeling about it, and then you shouldn't force it too much, and then yeah, try to understand also the personal boundaries of the stranger, of course. For example, if they are outside eating something at a restaurant with friends, having fun time, then probably that wouldn't be a perfect timing to abrupt the safe space and then asking for a portrait. So be respectful with a stranger, and then everything else will flow automatically. And what also Axel mentioned about taking portraits or pictures of family members and friends, that can also help you to get comfortable with portraits. But in my case, I really like to display the person as natural as possible. So I don't really force them into something like a standard model pose, because clearly with these two guys, they are not really models, and maybe they are also a little bit shy. Then if I would force them into something that really they don't want to do, or they feel really uncomfortable with it, then you just destroy like the positive feeling that you built up so far. So I would try to make it as raw as possible and as natural as possible. But with these two guys, they were just super extroverted. So I could ask the one guy to sit down on the stairs, and the other one just looking natural to the camera. And then yeah, it was really nice to take portraits of them. And then maybe to summarize a bit, yeah, it's definitely important to be maybe we heard a lot about that. So positive body language with a smile. Yeah, find topics to where you connect with. If it's a musician, then you can also ask about, first of all, about the instrument, about their music career, and then you feel like a natural, or you have the natural conversation, because then you also share about your passion. And then just afterwards, after we both are warmed up, you can ask them for a portrait. Or if you have really just interest into their look or something that stands out, then show just a genuine interest into that. Like, I really like your jacket. It looks really good on you. Do you mind if I take a portrait of you? Something like that. But the most important thing is that just be yourself. Don't force you something into it, and don't act too much, because everything will be reflected on the stranger. They can feel it if you're over the top or if you're not really yourself. And then in the end, also be respectful. So don't display people in a bad situation or setting. So that's my ethic. Yeah, but you need to define it for yourself. But yeah, be respectful in general. And then in the end, what I really love to do is just to offer the photo as a gesture of saying thank you. Gear and processing, also my street photography workflow. For me, I found out that I work the best if I have less gear as possible. So in my case, I usually have just one camera in my hand or around my neck with one single lens, and usually also a prime lens, because then I feel also comfortable with the camera itself, and I already know how the image is going to be look like. If it's a 28, then I already know, okay, which frame I'm focusing on, and how much I need to move my camera away to gain or to have a specific composition. So therefore, yeah, minimal gear for maximum impact from my end. Usually, if I use a zoom lens out of the street, then I feel like, okay, should I go 28 or like 55 or like something in between? And then I lose the moment, or I lose the confidence to take a portrait. So therefore, just one lens, one camera. Maybe I have a second lens in my bag just in case if in one area is super empty, then I can go a little bit narrower to isolate a little bit, or play with the composition. But if I use a camera, then it's definitely one lens, one prime lens. Yeah, and then also one main topic, analog versus digital. I think we're going to speak about that also a little bit later. But to mention one point is definitely the tactile feeling. I really love to do analog photos because I'm fully control of the camera. Sure, you can do that also with a digital one, but with the analog photography, it's like I don't have a barrier between myself and the situation. I look through the rangefinder. It's again not a display, it's just a one-to-one replication of that scene. And I feel like more comfortable with that because I usually also work 9 to 5 in front of a computer. And then the analog workflow gives me a balance and also a more focused way to take a photo. And then also with analog photography, everything is also about the creative process afterwards, after taking the photo. Like on my end, I usually also develop black and white photos. So developing the photos is super tactile. That's actually what I love. And then also to hold the negatives in your hand, to see it, something tactile, makes me super happy to see. That's also the reason why I, yeah, mostly do analog photography. And if it's color film, then I go to a lab to get it developed, but still I have the negative in my hand, and that's something tactile and something that's like, oh, super amazing to see. And what I usually also do as a, we could say, as a processing during outside, during photography or street photography is also zone focusing, which I usually also haven't heard about since I start with street photography. Maybe that's also the reason why I start to also do or work with more with analog focusing lenses. Um, Actually, I can show it you with a camera. I think that's a little bit easier to understand. So that's a way to focus or to work quite easily or quite fast in a specific time, because sometimes an interaction happens just for a few seconds and you need to be ready. Everything must be already set up. And zone focusing is a way or a method to help me to achieve exactly that. Um, as an example, I have a 28 millimeter lens on that camera, and I set the focusing distance to 3 meter. I hope you can see that. So 3 meters in the middle. So that would mean that everything that is 3 meter away from that camera would be in focus. But with zone focusing, I can select how much area I want to have in focus. So that means, as an example, if I set in higher area, like an f8, so that's the aperture setting, and then the distance is to 3 meter, you realize in the bottom there's also a scale that is called the focusing distance scale. And you realize also there are similar numbers on the lens as the aperture. And as an example, if I set the aperture to f11, there are also some lines on the lens itself, like f11 on the one hand side and on the other one. And that means in that case here, if I leave the setting as we spoke about, then everything from almost 1.2 meters up to infinity would be in focus. So then I can just concentrate more with getting the image and also pre-selecting how much focus I want to have in the image without looking into the viewfinder and also like fiddling around. That was that yeah that was causing a little bit more like losing time. So if I use zone focusing, I'm already having a specific zone focus, and then I just quickly take the photo, and I can change a bit maybe of this of the focus. Maybe the subject comes a little bit closer, then it's just a tiny bit. Do it again, and then also I have more speed to do also some other examples. So that's the way how street photographers usually working quite fast on the street, and also unnoticed because I can just enter the street, enter the scene, take two photos, and just go away. So yeah, one of my favorite techniques.
Know a bit more about like the specific gear. Sorry.
Yeah, as you already know, um, I have the Leica MP in my hand. So it's a fully analog camera. That's definitely my favorite camera for all time. But in general, what I love what I love about the Leica M system is definitely the size of it. So for a full frame camera, even the digital ones are similar to that size. It's super small and handy, and I think that's also one of the reasons why I get so many street portraits, because the camera itself looks like old school and analog, even the digital ones, and they look so innocent. And that's the reason I think, or one of the reasons why, next to my character and stuff, why strangers are maybe a little bit more comfortable in front of the camera. Imagine you have a uh, like here, like a Mamiya RB67. It's a big camera and with a big lens, and if you just point them to a stranger, they feel quickly uncomfortable with it. So something, yeah, like helps me also to get these kind of pictures, and also for sure the build quality and everything else is also amazing about that camera. And if it comes to the lenses, I usually work with 28 if it comes to street photography. So I can create easily interesting compositions with it because I have a lot of contacts. It's a really wide lens. I can work around with that. For example, if I go out for a street or if I want to take pictures on an event. But the 35 millimeter is definitely my go-to focal length because it's just an all surround focal length. It's wide enough to have contacts in your image, but it's also a little bit narrower. So if I take a portrait, for example, it doesn't tend to have falling lines like with the 28. If you just shift the camera a bit, it can happen that the subject gets a little bit stretched. That can have an unpleasing look unless you are willing to work with that kind of look. And next to the Leica M system, I really have also several other cameras. Like as I mentioned, the Mamiya RB67, like on the first smaller picture, and the Fuji GA645, which are both medium format cameras, film cameras, and I like to use just different ones to also have a different workflow. And if I have a different workflow, I also tend to work or photograph a little bit differently. And so I can spice up my photo game a little bit time to time if I get bored, for example, or if I need new influences or new yeah, inspirations. And of course, I have also a digital camera just in case if a customer wants to have an economical wise cheaper images and is not willing to pay the analog ones, then I can also offer that. But yeah, in the end, it really depends on you if you like a camera or not. So it doesn't mean that you need an RB67 to have exactly same images. A camera should have or should have a feeling like a comfortable feeling. It should motivate you. It should be also comfortable for you to work with, so you don't have like fear to taking photos. So that takes a while for sure to find one. But maybe you already have a camera, then maybe try to give it a second chance, get you used to the settings, and then you maybe also learn how to work with it, and maybe also you find a way to love it also. And then one big topic, why analog and why black and white photography? I already mentioned the tactile feeling of analog photography, but at the same time, it slows you down. First of all, it's a slower pace of working. With a digital, you can just press the exposure button and then you have 30 or even more images. With analog photography, you need a little bit more time for the next frame. And then at the same time, you're also embracing like misfocusing a bit. And then also, while doing that, it can also enhance specific feelings. And when it comes also to analog photography, you have also the aspect of grain and also the different film stocks you can use with, so you don't really have to invest so much time afterwards with the editing. So that's one of the reasons why I love analog, because I really don't love to spend more time in front of the computer. I already have enough of it. So that's one of the reasons why I love to do that. And then especially with black and white photography, you're stripping down more informations out of it. You limit yourself with the essentials. You're limiting the color. So you have more emphasis on the image itself, on the composition, and also on the emotion, which black and white photography really enhances. And if I take portraits, then I think also the feeling and the story of the people is also a little bit more enhanced, more raw than a completely digital, super sharp and perfect image. So yeah, that's also why I love digital, or why I love black and white analog photography. Um, so yeah, if you want to start with analog photography, I think you have quite a lot of options. So I really emphasize to just experiment with different film stocks to choose the right one. I can also recommend to go first online, have a look how they look like in the end. For example, on lomography.com, and then you can choose a right film stock that you are like, okay, that looks interesting. I like that. And then you can directly get the right film stock. And then if you have time to develop, then you can also have a little bit more, or you have also kind of impact how the image is going to look like. With black and white photography, it's quite easy to develop at home. It's just a developer, a fixer, and you need just a lot of water. And of course, also a little bit more of gear to do that. But with yeah, color photography, it's a little bit trickier because you have to be really precise with the temperature of the developing process, the fixer process, and also the chemicals are also a little bit stronger and also not really smelling pleasingly. So therefore, I go to a lab because I really don't have that much struggle with color photography. But if it comes to black and white, I just do it myself, and I just love to do that manually and by hand, and then just getting out the film. You see also the negatives is a rewarding feeling, and for sure with black and white photography, if I go out, it's also a different way to photograph. You're a little bit more due to the strip down of color. As I mentioned, you're focusing a little bit more on the feeling of the rawness and also a little bit of context, contrast, and texture. Yeah,
I was also really impressed about like how easy it is to develop like black and white photography. So you told me I haven't like tried it myself, but
yeah,
I definitely will do it. So, but I didn't know before that it's like that easy with black and white
it
photography.
is. It is.
And
Yeah,
since
there's also a lot of starter kits online. So you don't have to search for yourself everything together. You can just buy a starter kit. There's everything included. I think it's like 30 euros, and then you can start right away.
I think it's also something nice to get a new feeling for the whole topic of photography. So it's
Right.
definitely totally different than shooting like digital. So I've tried. So I started myself also with analog photography with Nikon F3,
Mm,
and yeah, it's really nice. It's different. So you start like to understand and to feel the photography, the whole photography topic in a different way. But for example, here Shansa asked one question. I think it's easy to answer.
mhm.
Using cell phones. Definitely. So it depends on the cell phone, but for example, with an iPhone, you can shoot in RAW and you can shoot also in black and white. So in iPhone, but it's not a problem. So you can, if you don't have like a classic camera, you can also use your iPhone and try and yeah, develop something for you, like using your cell phones as a photo camera.
Yeah,
So there.
definitely. I also started photography with doing yeah, like iPhone shots when I moved to Berlin. So everything looked super interesting and super new. So I didn't have a camera on that time, so like more than 10 years ago. And I just shot everything on iPhone. And then with the help also with other apps like Visco, for example, or maybe also Lightroom. If you have presets, you can also edit the photos quite easily directly from the phone. Also with a like an analog touch. So I think a true analog photographer, they see already if it's analog or not, but it really gets close to the look of an analog photo. So if you want to have just an easy start into photography, you have already a phone, then yeah, just try to download yeah, apps like Visco, for example, and then you can already start right away with taking photos. Nice. And then in the end, one of the last topics also influential street photographers and also inspiration from my end. I think this is just a small selection of photographers that I really like and that are also influencing my photography as well. Because it's really nice to see what other photographers, if it comes to like famous one like these here, or like other ones that you know, like friends or maybe other Instagram photographers, then it's really nice to see how they see the world. And and I think with these, especially, it's really interesting to see what it makes timeless. For example, like Vivian Maya had this way of doing a really quiet and secret way of street portraiture and street photography, even though she was shooting with medium format. But on the other hand, like a small contrast to her, like Diane Arbus, she was really taking raw images. She wasn't really afraid of people of the society that they were ignored. So she took a lot of portraits. I think she used it also. You uses also flash to enhance these raw emotion and also the feelings and also the yeah the feelings of them. Or for example, one of my um, huge inspiration is Andre de Wegner. He is an American photographer. He also shoots a lot in black and white, and has a street documentary style. He makes wonderful images. You can see them also on Instagram, Photo Dre. What I really like about Andre Wegner is also his philosophy and the way how he communicates and talks about his style of photography, his art. So there were a few videos online. You can definitely have a look on them. And then at last, Gordon Park, who really used his camera as a weapon against injustice. He documented back in the days the segregation stories of Black people in America. So really powerful, also really like scary images to see like something, yeah, these uncomfortable stories from the past. But at the same time, Gordon Park had the power to capture these humans with dignity and power, which is also really wonderful to see. So, in the end, it's really nice to study their work, to use it as a inspiration. But you can definitely learn something out of it, maybe a specific composition, maybe a specific technique like Dianabus with a flash, with a softer flash. And then you can yeah use it on your own photography and use it as an inspiration. That it's not an invitation to one-to-one copy them, but yeah, you can definitely learn something out of it and use it your own way.
Yeah. And if you want to explore them, so we just shared all the photographers in the webinar chat. Yeah, and it's I think also an important part like to have good inspirations so and kind of like learn from them, study their work and yeah, develop your own style. So, but you don't need to develop something totally new, but you
Yeah,
need like every time inspiration, inspiration, inspiration. So it's
exactly.
really, really important and really good for the development.
Nice. Yeah. In the end, I just can say that yeah, you need to definitely go out to. So if you want to do street photography and street portraiture, then for sure you have to go out. You need to interact with the human. You need to find their stories, see the untold or unseen moments. As Photo Dre or Andre Wegner has mentioned, it's always right now. So you have to go out. You have to keep experimenting. For myself, for example, I just go out almost every lunch break. So I'm always at the street and maybe also after work on the weekend, so I can have the chance to capture exactly these untold moments and stories that I showed and also talked about.
Yeah, it's definitely about this. So, and even if you're not about like into street photography, it's also nice to go out. So, to explore. Like, if you want to photograph nature or bird photography or even like sports, go to the next soccer match, so something unpaid. So, but explore yourself, so and try something new, and you will see it's really nice. Yes, now we came to an end, and we will start with the Q&A. And I've seen some people already typed in some questions, what's really nice. And I think one specific questions why you shoot like black and white, why monochrome photography. So it's I think already answered. So since we talked or you talked like about like your passion about black and white photography, but one important question, I think, yeah, we need to mention or need to answer. It's like, for example, from Popper, do you ask for a model release for each person in case when you can recognize the person?
If it comes to, I think it goes into the question of data privacy, which is definitely um, um, spicy topic in Germany, I would say. Usually, if you do street photography, you don't ask people. Um, then it is technically. I'm not a law or somebody who works at law, so don't use my words. But it should be covered in like freedom of doing art. And so therefore it is allowed to do also candid street photography. Um, but in the end, it's a matter of the judge. If he or she decides, no, that image is maybe displaying the person in a really unlucky way, or maybe you are gaining also money, or like you're using that image as a campaign image, then it can definitely may happen that it falls yeah, under the data privacy law. But usually, uh, yeah, don't note my words, but usually it should be covered by the freedom of doing art, because street photography officially is also a way of doing art, not like painting, also like painting and other stuff. And then, yeah, therefore it should be also allowed.
And it's also like this kind of photography, or like it's the same for journalism or documentary photography. So,
Exactly.
but at the end, you need to know the rules and the consequences. So
Right.
yeah, you need to be aware, like, and this counts only for Germany because every country has its own rules. So, for example, Rima asked like a question, good question. I've got she asks how to handle street photography in the places where it's against the law in religious aspects to randomly photograph people. So it's if you don't know the rules, it can be like really tricky and at the end expensive. So it's better to know everything and feel like safe. And if not, yeah, you must be like aware like about the consequences. So, but yeah, that's a side effect of street photography, I think, and it's not every time easy, not every time like the easiest way in other countries if you're not sure about like the rules. But yeah, and the next question also from Rima, which of your portraits would you call your favorite and why?
Oh, wow. That's a hard one because I had so many street portraits taken already. Uh, wow. Maybe a street portrait that I took 2 days ago was also really, really wonderful. That was a couple that was sitting outside and enjoying themselves, and I was just approaching them and asking for a portrait, and they were just really continuing what they did, and they were like in a really intimate feeling and atmosphere, which usually you're not really allowed to capture. So yeah, that was kind of surprising for me because I really didn't had such experience of that. So they were super comfortable in front of the camera. But if it comes to like a conversation or story that I had, oh, there's so many. What, for example, we had, for example, I traveled beginning of this year to to London as well, and we took also quite a lot of street portraits with a friend of mine. And we had also like a street, or he took a street portrait, and we got invited to a random festival, and we spent the whole day there, took several other street portraits over there. So that was also one of my favorite encounters that leads to something else you haven't planned so far, because we had planned to be somewhere else, but then with the invite to the festival, that was definitely one of the highlights, and also due to photography or portraits, or definitely something that also was was really significant on that trip.
So one more question I have here, also really interesting. How do you decide whether you stop and talk, learn more about the story, and take pose portraits versus capturing a candid fleeting moment?
Oh yes.
I think it's a feeling, right?
That's definitely a question that you have to ask every time, because if something beautiful happens in front of you, like I don't know, like we saw in the beginning of the man who just hugs the woman. Um, you have to decide for yourself if you want to capture the moment without interrupting it. Because if you interrupt the scene and start to ask and to care about the people, then you destroy also somehow the magic that happens if you don't interrupt the scene. So usually I decide if it's a moment that I don't want to interrupt because the moment itself is so beautiful to capture, or usually I ask people for a portrait if they have like a specific feeling, or you could say also like an aura around them. Then I try to engage with them, ask them for a portrait about, asking about their story. And then one turns to another, and then I take usually also the portrait. But yeah, the main thing or the main question is always, do you want to interrupt the scene, or do you want to take a portrait?
It's a key point,
Yeah,
definitely.
definitely.
And yeah, we'll take two more questions. So, and I think this one is also really interesting for everyone, if it's about street photography or photography in general. So the question from Alexander is, do you earn significant income from street photography, and what strategy would you recommend for this? Sorry.
Wonderful question. I wish I had a significant income from street photography. Um, that's something that I do as a side passion, I would say. It gives me so much positive feelings and energy from the photography itself. For sure, if I would gain money out of then I would maybe work less on the side and can fully focus on the photography. Um, so that's kind of tricky to do street photography as your main income thing. But there's definitely ways to do that. If you, for example, work for in a news agency, you can get hired to document specific happenings like a demonstration or maybe a meeting. And then you get also money for documentary style, street photography style photography. And there are also definitely opportunities in terms of like giving courses and workshops, or if you're also more well known, I would say, or you have your base or your community around you, then you can also think about to create a book, or yeah, a book with your work. Either it's just a yearbook or maybe a book over a few years or towards a specific topic, and you can try to sell that. Um, that could be even possible, or if you want to go more into that museum and art style, then you can also definitely print your work, or maybe if you do analog photography, you can enlarge them also manually and make a small set out of it, like a limited set, and try to sell them also for money as well. So there's different ways to earn money. I can't really give you a tip to do that because I haven't done it so far. Maybe that's the next step that I will do, try to experiment with. But currently, I just enjoy doing photography and just want to, yeah, experience more stories and more moments until I step into that direction.
Yeah, thank you. And I think there's one question also interesting and for a beginner also hard because Jerome is asking, I want to invest in a camera, but I'm scared that I might not like photography that much. What is your
Hmm.
best advice regarding this? So,
Hmm. Um, Buy a camera used because you don't have to spend so much money in the beginning. Um, the used camera are usually also they're a little bit maybe not really nice looking because they have some scratches and dents, but it's a way to just test out a few camera options that you haven't tried so far and find yourself maybe first of all a company that you like, maybe a system that you like, and then once after another you can just upgrade from one system to another one if you have the feeling that helps you with the art or with the style of photography that you do. So buy used. I also buy most of the time I buy every camera used, even my MP. It looks kind of new, but it's actually used. So that's definitely a wise way to yeah start a little bit uh, um, how to say it economically intelligent into a deep rabbit hole.
yeah. It depends also on the cameras, but yeah, most of the cameras it's smart like to buy them used because the used market is big and you can save so much money. And some people like you asked Jerome, they buy the a new camera and after like 3, 6 or like 12 months they feel, "Ah, I don't like the camera. Oh, I'm not that much into photography." And there
Mhm.
are people who buy like really expensive ones, but you can like then afterwards buy these cameras and they never used it really hard like for work or something. It's like was like just a hobby and in this way you can find cheap and good cameras. So don't
Yeah,
spend on the new market. So
right.
check out like the used camera market.
Or check
Yes,
out like,
thank you
or
very
maybe
much,
just one
Gavi.
cut,
So sorry, yeah.
or maybe just one point, or check markets like MPB
Sure.
or KAH. If you feel, if you do analog photography and you feel like unsafe if the camera works or not, usually these company make sure that the camera are working fine, and if not, it's an easier way to get your money back, unless you buy it from a private seller. So
Yeah,
maybe look also into these markets.
that's a good point. So don't get scammed. So like you need to also be safe, and there are all markets and shops. For example, in Berlin, we have different camera stores where you can buy a lot of different models of used cameras, analog, digital. So, and I think in your country, in your city, check this out, and also the platforms. Yes. All right. If you're like interested, like connect with Gavi, you can people can reach out to you, I think, via Instagram. So this is the easiest way. If you have more questions, because I see we have like few more questions, and but yeah, connect with Gavi, like ask him questions, and yeah, stay in touch. Thank you very much, Gavi. Was really interesting. I've learned a lot again every day. That's about the photography. So you learn every day more and more and something new. And what I told Gavi a few days ago, so that for example, the hyper zone focusing was totally new to me, even after 10 years. So I've heard nothing about this, and now through Gavi, I've learned something new for me. So, and yeah, inspire yourself with other people, get in touch with other people, connect, go out, go to photo walks, and yeah, learn something.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much.
Alrighty. Then for everyone, we will share this webinar as a recording on YouTube in around 1 week. So you can step in again or you can share it with your friends if you liked it. I hope you liked it. And yes, alrighty. Then I wish you a beautiful day, beautiful week, and still a happy photography day. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye.